on. Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Peoria Public School District 150 Board of Education meeting for October 13th, 2015. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Eveland.
Here.
Mrs. Butler.
Here.
Here.
Mrs. Kowski.
Here.
Mrs. Jackson.
Here.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer.
Here.
Mrs. Ross.
Here. Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to ask us to please have a moment of silence for one of our students, Mr. Tommy Foster, who lost his life last Saturday, and also the other 3 young people whose families are affected by this tragedy. We could have a moment of silence. Thank you. Our prayers go out to the families. Okay, the first on our agenda is the community recognition. Tonight, our Community Contribution Award recognizes the Rotary Club of Peoria North. The Rotary is an international service organization with 1.2 million members who join together to create positive, lasting change in our communities and around the world. Chartered in September 1968 with a current membership of 165 members, the Rotary Club of Peoria North continues to support that mission with its primary focus on youth programs, literacy, education, and hands-on community service projects. We appreciate the work they have done and to continue to do and continue to be engaged in our schools. Mr. Matt McCullough, did I say that correct? Is the current president, and we ask him to highlight some of the projects that the Rotary Club of Peoria North has led in our district.
On behalf of the Rotary Club of Peoria North, thank you. We're honored to receive this special recognition. For those of you that may have heard of Rotary but aren't exactly sure what we do, I offer you the following. There are 32,000 Rotary clubs made up of more than 1.2 million Rotarians around the world. Rotary is a non-discriminatory, non-political, and non-denominational organization. We are a service organization made up of like-minded business professionals, and our motto is service above self. Rotarians, all 1.2 million of us, target 6 areas of focus: promoting peace. Today, 42 million people are displaced by armed conflict or persecution. Rotary Peace Fellows are training local leaders to support long-term peace building in areas affected by conflict. Fighting disease. Our members educate and mobilize communities to help prevent the spread of major diseases such as polio, HIV/AIDS, and malaria. Many of our projects ensure that medical training facilities are located where the workforce lives. Providing clean water. More than 2.5 billion people lack access to adequate sanitation facilities, and at least 3,000 children die each day from diseases caused from unsafe water. Our projects give communities the ability to develop and maintain sustainable water and sanitation systems and support studies related to water and sanitation. Saving mothers and children. At least 7 million children under the age of 5 die die each year due to malnutrition and poor health care and inadequate sanitation. We provide immunizations and antibiotics to babies, improve access to essential medical services, and support trained healthcare providers for mothers and their children. Growing local economies. Nearly 1.4 billion employed people live on $1.25 a day. We carry out service projects and enhance economic and community development and help to strengthen local entrepreneurs and community leaders, particularly women in impoverished communities. And our sixth area of focus, of course, is supporting education. 67 million children worldwide have no access to education, and more than 775 million people over the age of 15 are illiterate. Our goal is to strengthen the capacity of communities to support basic education and literacy, reduce gender disparity in education, and increase adult illiteracy. Increase literacy. Locally, the Rotary Club of Peoria North is committed to education programs at the primary, high school, and college level. We're proud to be the Adopt-a-School partner for Roosevelt Magnet School, where we also participate in a Reading Buddy program. We sponsor an Interact Club, which is a high school-age Rotary club at Richwoods High School. Although the alternative high school is closed, we still offer mentoring and scholarship funding for its former students. We donate books to Roosevelt School Library and school supplies for the teachers and staff to use throughout the school year. And on October 24th, our club will be installing a little free library, which is a take a book, return a book gathering place. It'll be complete with benches and landscape materials near the existing playground. So we'd love for all of you to join us. If that doesn't work, we meet every Thursday for lunch, and we always have room for visitors. We'd love to show you what we're all about. Again, on behalf of the Rotary Club of Peoria North, we thank you for this recognition. We appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Mr. Hunt. And on behalf of the Board of Education, Dr. Karat has a token of our appreciation for what you do for our students, families, and our district. And we appreciate the work that your Rotary Club does. Thank you. Doctor. Would you like to say something?
The next item, attendance.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank
Okay,
you.
Next on the agenda is the awards and recognition. Most improved attendance. Dr. Karat.
Thank you, President Ross, Board. This is something new that we're going to do on a monthly basis, and it relates to recognizing those schools that have improved regarding attendance. Attendance actually is a very, very important piece to improving schools, and it's a huge part of school reforms, and sometimes kind of gets lost in the shuffle. So we actually, tomorrow there will be a meeting. We're partnering with ROE, Beth Derry, and a couple of individuals from a community, and they're going to be looking at our attendance data and coming up with recommendations. I've commissioned that group to assist us because we believe attendance is very, very important. If the kids are not here, we're not able to educate them. So with that being said, so that group will be meeting tomorrow. I'm very excited about that campaign and the strategies that they're going to present for implementation and review. So what we've done the last couple of weeks is we have been monitoring attendance of every building, and our top 3 buildings that we're going to recognize this evening. Peoria High, they're doing a very good job. They have improved their attendance by 4% this time last year. This time last year, they were at 85%. To date, they're 89%. So they came in 3rd place. Second place is Woodruff High School, and again, 76%. They've increased it to 81%. So Manual is here this evening, and we're going to recognize Manual. Ms. Young is here. Ms. Young, can you please come? Her attendance has increased from 84% to 89.9%, almost 90%. So let's actually all of our buildings have made significant improvement and gains, and we're expecting to continue that trend month after month after month. So next month, hopefully, we will share that information with you and let you know who's really, and every building has an attendance plan, and there's specific things in terms of incentives. We know who's coming to school, who's not coming to school, what do we do in terms of phone calls, celebrations. It's quite comprehensive, so we can really tell the schools that are really working hard at it. So come up, Ms. Young, and kudos to Manual High School, Manual Academy. So she gets a banner to display in her building. So please celebrate, share with your staff and kids. Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any announcements?
Good evening. This evening, the primary principals would like to announce their goals and some of the ways we plan to achieve those goals. So I will call them up behind me, and then they will tell about their goals. We have Betty Kowski from Charter Oak, Ann Bond from Franklin, Matt Durr from Hines, Ken Turner from Keller, Kathy Trimble, Northmore, Carrie Berger, Thomas Jefferson, Katie Powers, Valeska, Pat Sales, Whittier, and Rachel Eveland, Woodrow Wilson.
Good evening, I'm Carrie Berger. I am the principal at Thomas Jefferson, and one of our goals this year, based on the fall 2015 reading assessment data, our school will demonstrate growth in their average RIT score as compared to the winter 2015 NWA readings assessment data. The growth rating in reading will be determined by the percent change in the school's average RIT score.
Good evening. I'm Patrick Sell, the principal down at Whittier Primary School, and thank you for the opportunity to share our goals with you tonight. The second goal that we have deals with our NWA math assessment data. So our goal this year will be to go ahead and improve our student growths based upon the RIT scores from the fall to the winter, and in both reading and math, our goal would be to get 3.5% by that winter point.
Good evening. I'm Betty Kowski from Charter Oak. The third of our goals is based on attendance. We are going to be improving our attendance rate for the 2015-16 year by 2% over that of the 14-15 year. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matt Durr. I'm the principal at Hines Primary School, and our fourth goal is to reduce suspension days by 10% over the previous year of 2014-15.
Sure. Hi, I'm Ken Turner from Keller, Dr. Carrot and board. I get to talk about some strategies we're using to make the change in reading that we were talking about. So all the primary schools address the core curriculum with all of our students. We use the Common Core, and we teach all of our students during a block of time in reading language arts. And then we break off also based on test data, DIBELS, NWEA, other tests that you don't want me to list, but we break them up into groups to address individual needs in small group settings. We do that during differentiated reading time. That's when we do the reading mastery and corrective reading you might have heard about. That's also when we do enrichment at the primary level. And then also during the reading block, we do workshop time, and during that time we do all types of small groups as well. That's also when we do some pull-out with our tutors, our Title I tutors. And we use that time to address all students' needs. We do remediation, we do extra practice at the grade level skills, and that's when we do a lot of enrichment as well. So it's exciting for us to do the small group work. That's where we see some of our biggest bang for our buck. And that's also, I think, addressing some of our attendance issues too, because the students enjoy that time. They like to be there.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Trimble. I'm the principal of Northmore Primary, home of the Navigators. And I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of what Ken Turner spoke about regarding language arts and talk about math. Regarding mathematics, we do a lot of the same things with math as far as small groups and the differentiated math time to meet the diverse needs of our buildings. But in addition to that, with the implementation of Common Core standards, there's been some shifts in mathematical practices that we are currently addressing with our students. There's 8 shifts, and a few of those include students learning to reason abstractly, even at the primary level, constructing viable arguments, and using math tools strategically. You probably are wondering, well, what does that look like in a math classroom, in a kindergarten room, or a 3rd grade classroom? What that looks like is you'll see students talking about math and engaging in math with their peers. They may be using manipulatives or math tools to problem solve. And also, they'll be talking about and engaging in real-world math problems. You know, I think back to our primary years in math, and we get a worksheet full of problems, and then we'd sit at our desk and solve them and raise our hands and ask questions. But students are more they're given more opportunities to work together and problem solve on things that are much more real world as though we see math as adults. Across the district, teachers are administering mid-unit and end-of-unit assessments, and they're utilizing this data to drive their planning and the instruction that's going on in their classroom. I would definitely say that our primary students have a much deeper conceptual understanding of math with the implementation of Common Core standards, and we're able to meet them at the various levels that they come into our building set. Thank you.
Hi there. I'm Rachel Eveland. I'm the principal at Woodrow Wilson. I'm going to tell you a little bit more information about our attendance plan. Like Dr. Karat said, every building has their individual attendance plan, but they are pretty similar overall. Okay, so at Woodrow Wilson, we do have our incentive plan to make students motivated to want to come to school. To do that, each classroom has a 10 frame outside of their classroom. And when they have perfect attendance for the whole class, then they get a sticker on their 10 frame. When their 10 frame is filled, so they have 10 days of perfect attendance for the whole class, then they earn an extra recess. So they're seeing the visual every day as they go into the classroom. Other students are seeing visuals as they're walking the halls to motivate students to want to come to school that way. We also have individual we call them Badger Bucks, where teachers hand out Badger Bucks on a daily basis if students are there, if they brought their homework, if they are coming on a regular basis, they can earn these Badger Bucks. Also, we have a perfect attendance for the quarter incentive, and at the end of the quarter, which is coming up, we'll be doing announcements over the intercom to announce students that have had perfect attendance for first quarter, and they also receive a reward for that. For our students that are struggling with attendance, we do have an attendance monitoring process, and we do follow a tiered intervention process just like we would for academics or social skills. But our Tier 1 is for all students, and that is addressed through sharing our grading policy, sharing our attendance policy with parents at our back-to-school night. I also went to every classroom at the beginning of the year and addressed the grading policy, attendance expectations with the students directly. And then daily, teachers have what we call Badger Time. And this is where teachers get to know students, develop relationships, and they're also talking about attendance and how important it is to be at school and ready to learn on a daily basis. Our Tier 2 intervention is for those students meeting Tier 2 criteria, which is 3 unexcused absences or 5 unexcused/excused absences per quarter. And so we have a board, a bulletin board where we have the students meeting this criteria, the names, and how they're meeting the criteria. So when we do our weekly team meetings with teachers, they see how attendance is factoring into academics, social skills, and then also those teachers are making phone calls home to parents, letting them know what our expectation is for attendance, and then a letter also goes home, letting parents know what the attendance expectation is and encouraging them to get their students on a daily basis. Then we have our Tier 3, which is where Project Target, they come in weekly and they get involved. And then I also have a Family Core liaison who meets with parents if their students are meeting this criteria, to discuss a plan to get their students to school on a regular basis and how this can affect them academically throughout the year. So that's a little bit about what we do at Woodrow Wilson for our attendance plan. And then all of us have a plan individual, but next person.
Hello, I'm Katie Powers. I'm the principal at Valeska Hinton, and we believe that it takes a village to get students to school. We currently have 92%, and we're reaching towards our goal to get 93%, 0.46, and raise it higher. So as we believe that it takes a village, we are implementing a parent component where students and families will work together. We are currently on intersession, so students come back to school next Monday, ready to start the second quarter, and that's when they will be able to, and parents will be able to implement that as well as part of our attendance plan. So I have that for you.
Good evening. My name's Ann Bond. I'm the principal at Franklin Primary School, and I'm speaking on behalf of not only my team, but also Julie Gillis, who is the principal at Harrison. She can't be with us tonight because she is ill. So I'm kind of speaking for both of us. So I wanted to address the reduction in suspensions that we have as a goal as a team. One of the things at Franklin that we noticed last year as a ULT and as our PBIS team talked, we noticed that we were spending more time reacting to situations instead of stepping back and being more proactive and looking at things from a preventive standpoint. And so that was something that we knew ahead of time going into the school year that we needed to address. One of the things we also talked about is how, yes, we have suspended children, but we know that that is not the solution to things. And so again, coming together to talk about what is the solution, what can we be doing ahead of time. So here are some things that we have started already at Franklin this school year. On Institute Day, we spent our entire day talking about social emotional learning. And we had to do kind of a shift, a mindset shift, because at Franklin anyway, the whole idea was PBIS, and PBIS was kind of the umbrella of our thinking when we thought of social emotional learning and development. And there's nothing wrong with PBIS. There's a lot of wonderful things that come from PBIS, but we needed to shift our thinking a little bit to look at social emotional learning as more of our umbrella, and that PBIS is certainly a strong component of that, but there are lots of things that fall underneath that social emotional learning umbrella. So we spent a lot of time talking about that. The PBIS team and I actually came together. We made a social emotional learning binder for every teacher, every staff person, actually even our custodians have one, so that we're all on the same page with our thinking and that mindset idea. Within the binder, there's all sorts of things, everything from, what is a major and what is a minor, kind of those logistical things, down to different resources we have. So we have Love and Logic, we have BIST, we have Second Step, we have actual resources that they can pull from to utilize whenever necessary. We also, thanks to the United Way this year, have the funding to have Second Step in our school, kindergarten through 5th grade, so every single classroom has their own Second Step kit, which is huge. So not only are we teaching what a lot of us think of as kind of those core academic subjects, but the social emotional learning, our Second Step, is a piece of that core. So that's something that we have implemented so far. We also have 2 family core family liaisons, family school liaisons at our school building. Again, part of that is thanks to the United Way as well. And the connection that we have with Family Core is really, really powerful. They do social emotional groups with our children. They do one-on-one connecting with kids just all day long. I mean, they just are a really positive force within our building. They do home visits, all sorts of things. Related to Family Core and related to the United Way, we are meeting, and I say we, it's myself, my assistant, and Ron Tyler from Family Core. He comes, and Jan Leonard from the United Way comes. And we're meeting monthly, and we're looking at our data. Not specific kids or specific names, but just an overall, it's called the Big Five when you look in pinpoints. So kind of those big 5 pieces. What are we seeing as the most... is it aggressive actions? What is the offense that's coming up the most? Are they minors? Are they majors? What time of day is it happening? Those kinds of things. And we're brainstorming together to come up with solutions. And so that's been really helpful as well because Mr. Tyler, for example, can allocate his parent educator to come to Franklin and help us out and do some parenting sessions with our families. There's just a lot of really wonderful things that come from that. So those are kind of some key pieces that are happening at Franklin. And then Julie sent something through email that she wanted me to read to you. Okay, so I'm going to read this. This is now Harrison, so now I'm Julie. Okay. She says, this is the 3rd year for Elite at Harrison Community Learning Center. Each year we have tweaked the program to fit the needs of our students and improve the fidelity of the program. This year, each Elite staff member has an assigned caseload of students. The students were selected based on their attendance, academics, and behavioral data. The Elite members check in with the students daily and hold interventions with them as needed. With the first quarter coming to an end this week, the Elite staff will be meeting with their assigned students to review their progress and set goals for the next grading period. While Elite works most closely with these students, they play an instrumental part in ensuring that we are proactively meeting the needs of all of our students. We would like to thank the board and superintendent for their work in keeping Elite at Harrison. Thank you, Julie. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Great job, elementary principals. I wanted to mention, I'm trying to get my microphone on. Yeah, here you go. Actually, we have some schools, a number of schools that have 95% attendance rate, and I'm looking at my my list, and here are some of them. For example, Richwoods, 95%. Washington is at 97% currently. Von Steuben, 96%. Sterling, 95%. Lindbergh, 95%. Mark Bills, 96%. Woodrow Wilson, 96%. Whittier, 95%. Northmore, 97%. Keller, 97%. Thomas Jefferson, 95%. Hines, 96%. Harrison, 95%. Glen Oak, 95%. Franklin, 95%. Charter Oak, 96%. So kudos to all of you. And the goal is basically where they were last year. So if they were at 95% last year, then the goal is to increase that by 2%. And you've done an amazing job. I'm very proud of you. Let's continue to stay focused. I call it the daily grind. And let's do it every day. We do it with integrity. We implement with integrity. We're definitely going to see significant improvements. So thank you very much. Ms. Stockman also. Ms. Wolfmeyer?
I especially appreciate you giving us some of the strategies that you're going to use to implement the things. I was particularly concerned with the suspension, and I shared this with Dr. Karat when I heard it for middle school. 10% is laudable, but I'm glad to hear you have strategies that you're going to be using to achieve that, because it's very easy when someone tells you to reduce suspensions by 10% to stop suspending students. That's the easiest way. I think in previous years, I think that is sort of what happened. I certainly don't want you principals to get the message that that's what we're sending, because we're not. So I was particularly glad to hear the strategies involved with reducing the suspensions, rather than, because that was a concern that I had, that could easily become that. So thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions for this group? Thank you so much. Other announcements?
Madam President,
Ms. Jackson?
parent-teachers conferences. Have you scheduled your parent-teachers conference yet? Parent-teachers conferences are next week. Call your child's school to make that appointment. Schools will open on Thursday night, October 22nd, Friday morning, October 23rd, for staff to meet with parents. Additional times throughout the week may be available. Email a teacher that you would like to meet with to schedule a specific time. And I say to parents, use that time not only to go to the parent-teachers conference, but to encourage your child and give a big thank you to the teacher that's spending the time in the classroom working with your child. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Mr. Adler?
Thank you, President Ross. It's my pleasure to announce the next Parent University. This month's event is hosted by Washington Gifted, and the theme is Barbecue and a Blast. Begins at 5 p.m. This Thursday, the 15th. So we hope to see parents representing all of our schools as well as community members there for the event. As usual, we begin with a free meal. We have childcare available for K through 4th grade students. And among the many workshops, we're excited to launch the new Peoria Public Schools phone app for parents, students, and community members. I actually have already downloaded it. But by using the app, parents can view grades, upcoming and missing assignments, bus routes, library checkouts, absences, and have contact information for the classrooms that their kids are in. In addition, families can also follow the schools their children attend, so they can see events, pictures of things going on. The information pulls directly from each school's website. So we'll officially launch the app and get parents login information during that particular workshop session, so we hope to see you there on Thursday. In addition, we have more than a dozen other workshops for parents to choose from. So the agenda is available on www.psd150.org/parentuniversity. And at this time, I would ask that Washington Gifted Principal Dave Poles come up and share a little bit about the workshops on Thursday.
Thank you very much. I'd like to have three of our staff members, because they're a huge part of what we do at Washington. It's not me, it's them. If you'd come up, please. Mrs. Jody Zakovic, Mrs. Cassandra Randall, Mrs. Elizabeth Hahn. And last month, as you recall, we talked about the great work that's been happening at Washington. I did notice that the W has now fallen, and as a Cardinals fan, I certainly find that appropriate, but if there's any Cub fans in here that would like to fly the W for the first time, certainly this is a great opportunity for you. So, yeah, anyway, a big sigh, so, but that's okay. Moving on. Oh, there we go. One of the things that's happening this Thursday at Washington, there's been a lot of preparation. Again, Mr. Copeland and his team, Mrs. Atkinson, and certainly Mrs. Jenkins, all the work that's been going on, a lot of communication back and forth, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity. One of the things that you'll see, of course, is the old meeting the new, certainly with the rollout of the app and the launch, a lot of excited parents, but certainly 18 great workshops, gifted education. Takes a lot of faces, and I think you'll be able to see that. A lot of the workshops being presented will talk about the need for community involvement. One of the things that we're very proud that you will see if you attend Thursday evening is the strength of adopt-a-school partnerships. We have three very vibrant, active partnerships, and all three of these partnerships I would really like to recognize officially. CGN and Associates with their supply chain presentation. It's been wonderful. We also have Illinois American Water, and perhaps Mrs. Sokovic will talk about that. She's directly involved with the Clean Water Celebration and the radio spots that occur. And then certainly Dewberry and Associates with the Peoria Architectural Tour, and they will speak to a lot of areas of Peoria you may not know about, and some great things happening. So again, I would love to see everybody Thursday. I think it's going to be a great celebration. Just real briefly, I would like to introduce Mrs. Zakovic and then Mrs. Randall and Mrs. Hahn, just to talk real quickly, they said, about some of the things that they'll be presenting too.
Hi there. At our parent university this Thursday, I would be happy to share with the parents Socratic seminars. It's an avenue for our students, gifted students, to get together to have a collaborative discussion and learn etiquette of conversation, which is important for all students. So the parents will be involved in having that collaborative discussion as well. They'll be given a topic, and we'll go through the whole Socratic roundtable discussion as we do. Thank you.
I'm Cassandra Randall, and I will be speaking about Kagan. Myself and Mrs. Zakovic were fortunate enough to attend the Kagan training a couple weeks ago, and I will be talking about what that looks like in the classroom, what that looks like in the gifted classroom, and what are some of the structures and things that the students will be going through as Kagan gets implemented more into our classrooms at Washington.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Hahn. I've been privileged to be sent to the National Gifted Conference the last 2 years. Thank you for allowing me to participate in that, and was highly impressed by Freeman Habrowski, who is working at the University of Maryland in Baltimore, and he spoke very eloquently about the importance of trying to improve math and science retention rates in college and how that really starts at our level, speaking to children carefully about their beliefs about math and science and their ability to really engage in those subjects and not feel so negatively and nervous about those subjects. And so we're going to view some video footage of his philosophy of education, and also how he feels that we as parents and teachers and educators can change the mindset of those students. Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Board, can I make a comment? I visited Washington today. The president of EMSA, the Illinois Math and Science School in Aurora, came and visited with me. And we visited Washington and Richwoods, and we went to a couple of classrooms, and principals and the teachers were doing an amazing job. Kids were happy, they were engaged, they were collaborating, they were hypothesizing. It was just amazing to see, and we're looking at collaborating more with EMSA. They would like to do some things. I had some ideas about we talked about professional development for teachers in math and science, and they can provide that. And then also having a summer camp, instead of sending our kids to Aurora or to, where was the other city? Some other city outside of Peoria. They can actually assist us in implementing. So I'm very, very excited about expanding and providing that opportunity for our middle school kids and providing them with top-notch. They don't necessarily have to attend EMSA, but they can still get a viable, robust experience here in our school district. So we talked about that today, and we're really excited about that. Right, Mr. P?
Very much so.
So thank you, teachers, and I'll see you on Thursday at Washington, the Parent University event. Awesome.
Thank you. Other announcements?
Yes, Mrs. Ross alluded to the incident that occurred over the weekend, and she mentioned specifically Tommy and this senseless shooting that occurred. And as we move forward, I would ask that we not forget Tommy and others whose lives have been impacted by the violence within our community. Today, just a quick update, our crisis team was available to students and staff at Peoria High, at Manual, and at Von Steuben Middle School and other schools across our district to offer support. Our internal crisis team counseled approximately 225 students and several staff members. Today, we will continue to provide support throughout the week while working to return to our normal routines in our school. Our principals, our staff members, and administrative team did an outstanding job organizing and deploying support to our families. I'm very, very proud of that team. Worked very, very hard since Saturday, Sunday, Monday, especially the team at Peoria High, Ms. Johnson, thank you, Mr. Elliott, Brooke, a number of individuals. I appreciate the work also and support of our Peoria Police Department. We worked very closely together, our school resource officers and city leaders during this time. There was a lot of support and a lot of collaboration. So finally, as a district, as we remember the life of Tommy Forrest III, I want our board and our community to know that we must do more to support and to engage our students and work towards a better community. As we work on our strategic plan, we must ensure that we all explore all options when it comes to a social and emotional framework so that we can have more than enough resources for our students and families, resources that will support and encourage them so that they can and want to learn. Thank you.
Excuse me. I want to just remind everyone about the District 150 Dash and ask them to join District 150 for a fun afternoon of family-friendly fitness on Peoria's riverfront. This annual Sunday afternoon activity begins at 1:50 p.m. on Sunday, October 25th, with the start and finish line at the Gateway Building Archway on Peoria's riverfront. T-shirts will be available for sale with a portion of proceeds going to the Peoria Public Schools District 150 Foundation. Prizes will also be handed out during the afternoon. Best of all, get the chance to network and promote healthy living with other District 150 families. If you would like to pre-register for the event, visit www.psd150.org and click on the event located on the district calendar. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay. Seeing none, approval of minutes from September 28th, 2015. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Allen.
Aye.
Mrs. Butler.
Aye.
You said Mr. Clark.
Aye, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
Mrs. Kowski.
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson.
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer.
Aye.
Mrs. Ross.
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. We are now at the place on our agenda that provides an opportunity for the members of the community who wish to address the board. As you know, we are all volunteers elected by you to oversee the development, implementation, and maintenance of a quality education for the students of Peoria District 150 schools. The board welcomes your comments and suggestions relating to this goal, recognizing that we all have our First Amendment rights of free speech. We ask that your comments be focused on those issues within the board's authority. There are some issues we are not at liberty to discuss in public, such as personnel and other executive session topics. However, if you have a specific personal concern that needs to be addressed, we will get a staff person to help you. In addition, board members are accessible outside of these meetings. Our phone numbers and emails are listed on the website, psd150.org. We realize that 3 minutes may not be enough time for some of you to express your thoughts. So we have installed, which I don't know who moved it, but there is a basket there. We have installed a comment box for your convenience. So if anyone out there moved the comment box, please put it back. It's red, and I want it back. Our board secretary will be collecting those comments after each board meeting to compile and share with the board and superintendent. When you are recognized, please come to the podium and state your name for our records. Each speaker has 3 minutes, and no one under the age of 18 may address the board unless accompanied by a parent, guardian, or teacher without the consent of the majority of the board. And thank you very much for coming today, Mr. Knapp.
Yes, I must not tell a lie. I did not take it.
Did you move it?
I said I did not take it. On last Thursday, I had the
The time's not up yet.
I had the opportunity.
Start now.
I had the opportunity to attend the meeting on school discipline, SB 100, and I found on the fourth bullet on the front page, first slide, I guess it is, says school officials, quotation marks, shall limit the use of expulsions and suspensions to the greatest extent practicable. I find this rather hypocritical in that the last 5 years I've witnessed so much expulsion and removal of students in this district, it's sad. Woodruff High School was closed, 900 students were expelled and forced to move throughout this community. We moved 100 kids from the inner city to Charter Oak, expelling them from their homes and their home school. We moved 100 kids to Lindbergh, moving them from their home school. I want to know from this Board of Education, what study have you done to show how this has provided progress to those some 1,200 or 1,100 students? I don't see it. Recently, Quest school students had to join forces with Peoria Heights to have a football team and soon to have a soccer team and a girls basketball team and a wrestling team, is my understanding. On the front page of the Journal-Star this weekend was an article, 17 paragraphs long, and it says, high school football, Peoria Heights. It says nothing in the headline about Quest. In the 17 paragraphs, there's not one Quest student or staff member mentioned in the 17 paragraphs of that article. These students had to leave Peoria to participate. I urge this board to bring them back into Peoria, as you've done with the homeschool students. The homeschool students have been allowed to attend District 150 schools and play sports. I happened to coach several of those individuals when I was a coach at Woodruff. You know, we need to include people in our district, not force them to go someplace else. I think it's very important that you understand again that our schools, some K-8, some K-6, some K-4, some 8, 4-8. I mean, I don't even know what schools. These temporary buildings we brought in, they get moved from Lindbergh to Thomas Jefferson, and there's not even a discussion at the Horseshoe about why these buildings got moved and the progress. I mean, what happened to the students at Lindbergh? Are they still there? Are they gone? I can't figure it out, and I know the public can't. I come to every meeting, and I don't understand why there's no conversation about the progress of these schools.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Ms. Sharon Cruz?
Dropping industrial arts and home economics has deprived today's students of courses that led their predecessors to career opportunities in the trades and even to the pursuit of a college education. Many students need job skills to earn money for college. Most non-college bound graduates barely have schools to get anything but minimum wage jobs. I am glad for Woodruff's programs, but courses should be available at all schools as they once were. I was pleased that Caterpillar recently offered manual students some exposure to welding. A 1983 manual grad, Roger Willis, recently wrote this to me on Facebook, and I wanted to share it. I took every single shop class along with auto mechanics and auto body classes. What I learned at manual was pivotal and door opening. As a result of that experience, I virtually maxed the U.S. military ASVAB exam and qualified for any mechanical job that the military had available. I chose aviation, and that led to a wonderful military and civilian aviation career. I have since transitioned to both information technology and music industry careers. Everything I know today can certainly be traced back to what I learned at school, particularly manual. My high school diploma even reads trades and technical. I celebrate you and all of the other teachers that sewed into my life. I wouldn't trade my high school experience for anything. Roger served in the United States Army for 4 years as an aircraft turbine engine mechanic and as a flight engineer. He studied aviation management at SIU and studied at Florida State University and the United States Army School of Aviation. His civilian jobs include Vice President of Information for Amtrak Precision Products in Elgin, Illinois, and Vice President of Implementation for Visual Business Solutions. Roger worked at McDonnell Douglas, now Boeing, as a planner working on the AV-8 Harrier military jet and also on some of the early components of the space shuttle. He is now the owner and mastering engineer of a flourishing production studio. There he works with some of the greatest gospel artists in the industry. Roger's father graduated from Woodruff. His mother and 4 siblings are Manual grads. Roger's related to the Petty family. Roger's story and many others are Manuel's legacy. Success is not measured by test scores. Please consider that jobs in the trades will likely go unfilled as workers retire and their replacements have not been trained in District 150 schools. We are cheating our students of career opportunities, and I know I'm talking money, but something in the future to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. Information items, interventionists Joan Sick and Susan Martin. Smart goals.
Why the short one gets the microphone. Good evening. My name is Joan Sick, S-I-C-K. I have to spell that for everybody. And I'm the interventionist at Lindbergh, and this is Susan Martin. She's the interventionist at Northmore. So we collaborated today on our presentation. We were given like 3 minutes each, and if anybody knows any interventionists in their building, they know that there's no way that an interventionist can talk about data in their building for 3 minutes each, so we're pooling to make 6 minutes and hopefully maybe one more or something. You want to?
We did do a slideshow with just some talking points, so as long as you can see it, that will help us. All right, data discussion is a big thing in all the schools. We are very blessed at both Northmore and at Lindbergh that we have daily grade level PLC time. So that's an opportunity for all the teachers in the building to meet with their grade level to discuss data. We create the calendar so that it's applicable to the school, it's applicable to student needs, to teacher needs, to data, to reflection, to grouping, to test analysis. The list goes on and on.
Every other week, we have staff PD, and at both of our schools, we are fortunate enough to, and I'm sure everybody else does, had great relationships with their principals and administrators to share their vision of what the goals are for the school. So in turn, we pool the needs of the staff and provide professional development. Every other Wednesday are our meetings, and those go in line with what is going to best support the SMART goals that we have set for our school. Also at our school, we have weekly vertical team meetings, and at all of these are based on data needs that we have found in our school. Vertical team meetings, which is a team meeting of only ELA teachers, only math teachers, social studies teachers, and science teachers. Also, our leadership teams meet either monthly or every other week, just depending on the needs of the school. And our PBIS teams meet both Tier 1 and Tier 2 and Tier 3.
Basically, we took our data and we looked at 3 different parts. And when we were creating this, we were talking about how these 3 areas are constantly overlapping and constantly moving. The social emotional part has to be addressed in order for the academics to be on target, for the behavior to be in a positive way. So we could have arranged these 3 circles in any area or any way, but it's just that all of these have to be addressed at all points of the school, all day long.
I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So we'll break down each of the components, each of those large overlapping circles. The social and emotional support, we have these different tiers of support that we're providing our students. In the middle school, we have a program called Oveus, and that's the creator's last name. And it's a philosophy, it's an anti-bullying program that we are deeply involved with at Lindbergh. It's a chance for students to share their concerns and actually have one-on-one conversations with staff members with those concerns. And it's just a really great program that we had the opportunity to have. In Northmore, they do a program called Second Step, which is very similar.
With the Second Step at Northmore, the teachers dedicate 2 time periods during the week. It's about a 15 to 20 minute time period. And it's a scripted program. There's cards that the teachers use, but it's a lot of conversations, a lot of practical, talking to kids about facial expressions or how to read body language. But it's just things that we're finding that students come to school with, those aren't perfected. So we're using these 2 opportunities to teach these skills to the students in the primary schools.
We also have advisory groups where the entire school is broken down into small groups, and every staff member is given a group, and we work on responsible, positive relationships. We focus on how, just like Susan said, how to appropriately talk to someone else, how to be sensitive to other students' needs, and we do a lot of team building at that time too. So at any moment you could see and come to our school on a Friday morning and see spaghetti building with marshmallows and such. So it really gives a chance for students to see the teachers having fun and teachers actually seeing the students have fun and with a little less stress.
The discipline data, at both schools, we're looking at it weekly. We're looking at it at grade levels, we're looking at it at school level, we look at it during ULT time. PBIS Tier 1 groups and Tier 2 groups are looking at school-wide data as well as individual data for certain students that are moving into Tier 2 or moving into Tier 3.
Some more specifics of the discipline data. I think this was touched upon by a few of the principals. Also, we are trying very hard to perfect the preventative measures. I think Ian was talking about that at Franklin. So we're trying to very hard at our building to build those relationships with students. Therefore, if a student is given a discipline referral or an ACE room visit, parent contact has to be made. Also, in addition to that, the teacher must have a conference with the student to process what happened, how it could be done differently, and hopefully to avoid those bigger blow-ups that we might have in a school.
So we talked about the things that we have in place. Then we also do a lot of recognition. In both schools, we have a big focus on on character ed, of talking about the 8 different pillars. In both schools, we talk about there's a student of the month that's elected or voted on in each grade level, in each homeroom. At Lindbergh, those children have the opportunity to take field trips. We do monthly core value celebrations at Northmore. So there's a lot of ways that we're drawing in parents. The parents get a personal phone call from the teachers letting them know that their student was selected that month. There's a special charm that the students get that they wear on their PBIS necklace at Northmore. So there's a lot of ways that we're really recognizing the students. Teaching the core value every month is part of that process as well.
The next bullet point are unity meetings, and we do this at the middle school. Every month, a grade level has a unity meeting, a different day each day of that week. And those are, excuse me, pure celebrations. An example of some things that we celebrate are birthdays, perfect attendance, honor roll, students that turned in all their homework. So we try to do a wide gamut so most of the students get recognized. Then they see that and hopefully they'll be recognized the following month. But it usually goes hand in hand with also the focus of the month that we're trying to target.
Okay, moving into the behavioral part, some of these things we've kind of covered, as we said before, they all overlap. The ODRs in the ACE room, there's reflections and parent contact that have to happen in order for us to pull these families in to look for that support. We cannot do it on our own at school, so we're really looking for a lot of that parent contact, reflecting with the students, having them write in a think it through sheet. You know, why did I do this? What am I seeking? How can I do it differently? And then having that think it through paper go home, get signed by a parent, and brought back.
The PBIS, of course, every school has school matrix that they follow for discipline guidelines. In almost all schools, they give some kind of reward when they see students following the expectations of that. Our school gives tickets, and then they can use those tickets to buy things at a school store. And then also a monthly incentive is planned each month at the school. Also, I just want to add that I feel like all of these things that we're doing are not things. They are actually a process by which we're trying to go very deep into this year. I think we have all the data reading down, but now we're just going down to see root causes and really delving into the building relationship with the students. So I think both of our schools have that in common, that we're beyond step one, now we're really reaching into step two. So a lot of this goes on at every single school that you'll hear about, I'm sure, but we're just trying to go a little bit deeper with all of it. And then the last one are student meetings. This year, we're trying an inaugural student-led conference at Lindbergh, so the students will have their data binders and actually lead and have their parents and teachers on hand to facilitate that process. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that that'll be something we can continue to build on.
Tier 2, one of the things that is kind of standard across the district is the check-in, check-out. And we're looking for students to have 80% success rate on that. We're also doing some SAGE groups at Northmore. We also call them friendship groups because kids don't relate to what is a SAGE group. It's just like a social and emotional group. But we call them friendship groups, where students that maybe need a little extra small group support in how do you talk to a friend? How do you ask students on the playground if you can play with them? So it's just a lot of role playing, a lot of game playing. We're lucky to have a part-time counselor from Family Core, so that lady is able to run some of these groups and help support our behaviors. Now, this is really the best part of our jobs. We joke about our job description as interventionists because it's about 4 pages long. And the best part of our job description is that very bottom line that says something along the lines of, and anything else deemed by your principal or something like that. But one of the things that we've done for many, many years is the whole academic area of this job. And you can see a couple examples there of different things that we use that are very interactive by teachers. We have data displayed in lots and lots of different places in our building. Some data is for students to look at. Some data is simply for teachers to look at. You can see the one on the far left that happens to be from Northmore. But the teachers actually, those are all movable. So we put our data in, and then as they take the middle of the year test for MAP, those little pieces of paper are actually moved across that board. Obviously, we're moving towards higher percentiles, but our goal is to see growth. I mean, not every student's going to achieve at a top rate, but every student can show growth on these different assessments. The grades, they do more at Lindbergh. If you want to explain.
Yeah, well, I think we go slide by slide through these, but also point out the arrow at the bottom, because this is just a constant cycle in motion. We start with the MAP testing, the DIBELS, Easy CBM. Those are kind of considered our overall screeners. So from that, we break down and put that with grades and progress monitoring and do all of your little groups, I think that Mr. Turner actually talked about, and Northmore's principal. And then you start it all over again at the middle of the year. But it's a constant flow with how students continue to perform. So it's very flexible.
So kind of recapping, all of these assessments are given 3 times a year. We do them in September, January, and late April, early May. They're tier 1, so every single student in our building receives all of these assessments. The second step then is to analyze. So teachers are guided through that process. That's part of our job as interventionists, and part of the PLC is to look at a strand focus. So you're not just saying, oh, you got a 212 RIT score on your math test, but where are your strengths and where are your weaknesses on every individual strand of not just MAP, but we do it as well on DIBELS and on easy CBMs. So it's a time-consuming process, but I think that's the only way to truly see where students are. And then what that last step is, how do we create the learning paths for those students? How do we provide the enrichment and the intervention for all 419 kids at Northmore and a whole bunch at Lindbergh?
Okay, we'll go on. So this next graphic explains how we analyze grades, and we were finding sometimes that grades should somewhat reflect their standardized testing because they're supposed to be very similar in the instruction in our MAP testing. So we are now taking weekly grades of every student and looking like how many A's, how many B's, how many C's, D's, and F's. And then from that, we ask ourselves the next set of questions. We analyze those grades and say, is it because of absences, tardies, behavior, et cetera? And then the last step would be to conference with the students, and we actually have that team time during the day to bring those students in conference with all your teachers, because you know middle and high school, like if I were a math teacher and Susan were the ELA teacher, we wouldn't know what grades that one student has in both of our classes. So we're trying to pull all those resources in at one time so we can see the student as a whole to try to get them through.
Progress monitoring, or monitoring progress, because it kind of depends on the assessment, is something that is constantly done. I mean, there are students that have some form of progress monitoring every single week. And if you look at the third one, that's where it's flexible grouping. A student may be in an enrichment class, but that doesn't mean they're there for the whole year. The same with the other end. These kids are constantly moving. It's a fluid movement between different levels of grouping, depending on how they're doing on their progress monitoring.
And by subject. So a student might be high in math and low in reading, so they may be in an enrichment group in one and an intervention group in another. Go ahead.
Okay. And just to sum up, like Joan said, there's a lot of things that we've had in place. Joan and I have been blessed to be in the positions that we've been in for a while, so we kind of have some things rolling in our buildings. But it's going deeper. It's not just looking at data, but it's knowing what to do with that data. I think there's a lot of teachers in the building that they can all read numbers across the district, but what do you do with that data in order to increase student achievement? Questions?
Anybody have any questions? Ms. Wolfmeyer.
Actually, I think it's probably for Dr. Karat rather than you two ladies. If I remember correctly, last spring in doing some of the budget reductions, I think one of the things we cut were some interventionist positions. So am I correct in thinking that not every school has an interventionist this year? Is that correct or not?
Every school
Every
has
school
at least
they
one.
do. Okay, so maybe what we wound up cutting was some extra ones.
Some of
Okay.
the schools had two.
Okay, that answers my question then. I was going to ask what we were doing for those schools that don't have them. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Wolfmeyer. I mean, Ms. Sick and Ms. Martin, you're exemplary interventionists, and I love it that you get that whole child philosophy. Some people, it's very difficult. They just think of academics and that's it. So one of your very first slide, you showed those three pieces, the academics, the social, and the emotional, and mentioned and referenced the importance of sort of exploring all three in order to see significant growth. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one question real quick. And I know the data, we've been working towards this for several years now, but in your case, and as you talk to your fellow interventionists, do you feel like more and more of the teachers are buying in to the usefulness of this and that it needs to be done? Because I know it takes a lot of extra time and a lot of extra work on the teacher's part, too, to delve into it. Like you ladies are saying, now you've got the data, you know how to read it, but what do you do with it? So do you feel like you're making progress with teachers in buying into the whole thing?
I think so, and again, it varies at schools.
Sure.
I mean, our staff is pretty stable. I think when you have buildings where there's maybe turnover or more new teachers, you're dealing with those teachers in a different matter. But I think as we move towards the evaluation process, where teachers are seeing, you know, what do I do with this data? And part of my evaluation is going to be based on student growth. I need to do something with this versus just saying, well, I have so many in this category and so many in this category and so many in this category. So it's a work in progress.
Sure.
Again, it's a time factor. I mean, it's having, you know, PLC time, having grade level time that can be devoted to this particular topic.
Great.
Thank you. Mr. Cloyd has a question.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Just a question, do you sense that there's enough consistency from school to school, not just your two schools, but others where this is approached in approximately the same manner? We have 26 or 27 buildings here, and some of them have different needs. I guess the question, number one, is the consistency issue, and then number two is, how does this impact the ability to deal with particularly relatively new teachers and their challenges of classroom management, which seems to be a very difficult issue starting in your teaching career?
I think, first, your consistency question from building to building. Just quite frankly, we're buildings where we don't have sometimes as big a fish to fry. So our behaviors under control. We're trying to build those relationships so we can focus more on the academic component of those three pieces. But I will tell you that it took us a couple of years to get there. And the teachers, I think you asked about teacher buy-in, so to speak. Our teachers just found that once they started doing it, that it was paying off for them in the long run. And then what was the second part of your question?
Consistency.
The issue of particularly new teachers and the issue of helping them for classroom management, because I don't think when you come out of a university with a teaching degree and or certificate, you're really prepared to face some of the challenges of classroom management that these teachers are faced with.
Well, you know, again, just from our personal buildings, we have great relationships with our administrators who give us that priority focus also. So we can take those new teachers. It's that time built into the day, the PLC, because we have one every day, and the grade level team can support that new teacher. So these other things kind of become, you know, second nature to them, so they can work more on lesson planning and classroom management.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to back up a minute to number 9. We had Mr. Knapp and Ms. Cruz speak tonight, and I didn't ask for any response to the audience presentations by anyone around the horseshoe. Any response? You have something?
Ms. Kowski.
Ms. Kowski, okay.
I guess it's more or less of a question to Mr. Knapp, and I don't know if it's just my misunderstanding or what, but when you were speaking in regards to expulsion, I don't know if I'm confused on the content or what, but when you said that students were moving from the inner city to Charter Oak and from Woodruff, that was a form of, that was expulsion. But you had also referred to Senate Bill 100, which is discipline. So I was kind of confused on what you were really saying. And I don't know, maybe it's just me, and maybe I just keyed in on that, and that's why I stayed. But I thought that you had referred to Senate Bill 100 first.
Shall limit the use of expulsions. And I'm saying that moving 1,000 students or moving 100 students, and I would like you to tell the public how this has improved their performance when I think they would have been better off with stability and stayed in their own neighborhood instead of being expelled to another neighborhood.
Okay, so that might be
Okay.
something we might have to talk to him about later.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Mr. Cloyd?
Just a response.
You didn't get your question answered, but perhaps we could,
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think I had to just wrap my arms around the content of what you were, I guess because of the fact that I wasn't looking at as an expulsion. More, I was looking at that more of, what's the word when we're moving
I think
students?
we have the ability to track.
Mobility.
Track every one of those students who was transferred to a whole different neighborhood and put on a bus. The kids at Woodruff have been bused for 5 years. The kids in the inner city, I assume, are still being bused. I don't think that that's good, and if you can prove to the public that it's good, I would love to hear the statistics.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You had something?
Two things. One of them, I believe some of that took place as a result of the opening of those schools as choice schools under No Child Left Behind, so I don't believe we had a choice in that matter. That was, we were required to do by that federal law.
That's correct.
Number two is, speaking of the industrial arts and career and technical training, I think there's a lot of opportunities to enhance that. I know that I've been working with the Workforce Alliance as part of the Greater Peoria Economic Development Council on encouraging the use and expansion of Skills USA. We've worked with the Regional Office of Education and also with the group at ICC that has more than 200 students enrolled in Skills USA type teams and programs. And I think we need to encourage more of that because that's a great way to involve the community and students, and the competitions that they hold are extremely important in terms of getting them a chance to see what the real world is like and have opportunities for real exposure to what the career could look like in areas that they might have been interested in. And finally, I believe that with the grants that have been received by the Economic Development Council, they have also put in place the software Inspire, which is a linkage to career cruising, and the purpose of that is to allow students to work through career cruising to identify internships and opportunities for apprenticeships with businesses in the area. And the challenge is for the businesses to step forward now and provide those opportunities, because this will allow then the linkage between their academic, their career interests, and the curriculum to get them to the point of having a real-world experience while they're still in high school. So we're very mindful of that, and I think that's something that we're going to do more of as time goes on.
Okay.
Yeah. In terms of the configuration of schools that Mr. Knapp mentioned, that's something we'll be looking towards in the future. You're correct. There's just an assortment of configurations from K4 to K5 to K6 to K8, 5-8, and it's not aligned, and there's a need for improvement there. So that's you're correct. We'll take a look at it once we've stabilized other areas, but we're definitely, it's something that's on our radar for sure. And Mr. Cloyd is correct, Ms. Cruz. There's so much energy and synergy around the career academies, career pathways. That's something we're very interested in. We're working with, as he said, EDC, Economic Development Council. Actually, about on Friday, I found out I'm working with Judy Dietrich from Illinois Central College, Jennifer Daly, and Aroe, and District 150, myself. We submitted, there's an opportunity to attend a career pathway project, and they're actually paying for me to go. And you had an opportunity to write a problem, to submit a problem, and then get the peers, wise individuals, to sort of give you feedback in terms of how it can be approached. And the problem was implementing more career pathways. So it's really exciting, and they accepted our problem, and so we've not even gotten a chance to talk about that because we've just been so busy with other things. But hopefully we'll be able to get some great ideas and bring it back and share that. So a lot of energy, even starting at the elementary level, from cradle to careers, and there's specific things we can do. We have some great ideas. We have some great supporters and great companies that are willing and able to help us infuse some of these career ideas into, for example, math. And teachers it's not extra work for them. It's more engagement, more modules, more hands-on, more making things fun from a relevant perspective. So we're very, very excited about it. So thank you for sharing this young man's story with us and keeping that urgency, in front of us.
I want to. Points I really wanted to make. I'm starting a project of collecting these stories about manual, and it's amazing what our kids have accomplished. And we need to. This young man was very happy for me to do this. We need to acknowledge.
Maybe we can have a staff person, since we don't do back and forth. We have a staff person, sit down with her and talk.
I would, go ahead.
Ms. Jackson.
Yeah. I think that the chances of ever going back to neighborhood schools are non-existent as far as having real neighborhood schools as we saw it, where we walked 3 blocks to school. With the deteriorating schools and closing schools and no money to build schools, we won't see that. So we have to make it best for the children as we decide where children go and what school they go to. So it becomes being very innovative in how we do that to make not only the children comfortable, but parents. So I think even talking about neighborhood schools is probably not going to happen.
You had something else? Oh, Ms. Wickman.
And I agree with Mrs. Jackson. And Mr. Cloyd was correct. We had no choice on the Lindbergh and Charter Oak kids because that was NLCB. But that is one of the things that parents keep telling us they want is choice. And so in order for us to provide different choices of experiences for their children, they're going to have to leave their neighborhood. So it's always going to be a combination. I think we will have some neighborhood schools, but as long as parents want choice, we're going to have to find those other ways to provide those choices. So
I was just going to bring that up. We talked about the Lindbergh and Charter Oak, and I'm glad you clarified that, and Mr. Cloyd, too. Did you have something else?
Just add thank you to Mr. Copeland or whoever else fixed the projector bulb so that we can see those presentations without having to turn this into a cave down there. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that response to audience? And we'll go back to the discipline-related data review. Dr. Karat.
Thank you, President Ross. So it's really exciting because just listening to the assistant principals and then the interventionist, I'm like the stars are aligning, and there's I can feel and see and visualize and the coherence. We've heard about the focus on attendance. You've heard some about social and emotional side, and Mr. Knapp referenced Senate Bill 100. But the board, since I started, have talked a lot to me about discipline and behavior and wanting to have this conversation. So Mr. Adler and Ms. Jackson, Mr. Cloyd, and I know Ms. Butler is on that committee also. So here, this is what I have. I've written down. I said discipline and behavior have been an ongoing hot topic for some time in our district and actually our city, including when you went through the strategic forums that came up. And board members, you have seen the discipline data. It has been disaggregated in a variety of ways for you. You've seen, for example, in-school suspension by schools information, right? Mm-hmm. You have seen out-of-school suspension numbers by school. You have seen suspensions by grade level. You have seen infractions, like the top, let's say, 3 infractions from disruption to cutting class to electronics, tardy, right? Those are our top ones. You've also actually even seen suspension, like what grades are receiving the highest suspension. And when we look at that, it's 9th grade, right? And so we have that information. And then I've been gone for 4 years, and when I came back, things had changed slightly. And so regarding how we handled expelled student, for example. So I said, Miss Marlin, can we, I'm a sort of a visual learner, I like to see it. I said, can you, let's, do you have enough?
Just have one.
Okay.
You get an extra one there.
I said, let's sit down and just.
There you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's sort of do a flow chart. So this is what we came up with. You can kind of take a look at that, and this is what we're currently doing. Thank you, Ms. Ross. So take a look at that. When a student is suspended, if it's level 1, they have an option of, if it's an elite school, like where elite is housed at Harrison and Lincoln, they're this idea of school within a school concept. If they're special ed and they've been suspended for more than 10 days, tutoring is provided, for example. There's also support from Family Core. You heard a lot about them this evening. If it's a level 2 suspension, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Right? Okay, good. So we don't have to waste time with that. So that's what we're currently doing. And then there's a section for kids when they're expelled, when they're suspended, and then what happens when they're expelled. And the big thing is the abeyance, right? And they have that probation opportunity to sort of go back and on probation. So we have that. So efforts to improve school climate, safety, and learning are not separate endeavors, as you heard from Ms. Sick and Mrs. Martin this evening. So this is where a strategic plan comes into play. And when it's presented to you, hopefully before December, hopefully sooner, but my deadline is December, there will be a framework of 5 pillars of success. And for example, one pillar will be, and this is based on all of the notes that you gave to me, one pillar will be rigorous curriculum, high standards, engaged instruction. That's one pillar. And another important pillar is, which is what I'm talking to you about today, is systems of support that meet the needs, meet students' needs. And so I handed you a little document. If you can pull that out, we can sort of take a peek at it. But this will be, I would like us to have a conversation about it, but this is what I'm recommending to address behaviors, address discipline, and that sort of thing. It's that focus on that social emotional piece. And if you take, it says systems of support that meet students' needs. And I'm asking and I'm recommending, and you can see the goals, to provide a safe and supportive environment for all, to implement research-based, universal. Ms. Wolfmeyer, you were sort of kind of going there, and actually Mr. Cloyd in terms of classroom management. It's just pockets. We don't have universal. It's not universal. So we need something that's infused, system-wide, and an office that could provide support for those new teachers. I mean, we're asking the principals to do it. We're asking the interventionists to do it, but they also need additional support. So if you take a look at this, I'm proposing that we establish an Office of Social and Emotional Learning. And if you look at the timeline, this year, formulate and plan for an Office of Social Emotional Learning. And then from that office, all of these things will happen. We'll establish a universal district standard for positive, positive climate. And that's where we will focus on, okay, what are we going to be teaching? Okay, is it going to be BIST? Is it going to be restorative justice? Second step, and here's the support. And, is it going to be CHAMP? And, those sorts of things. Individuals who are highly trained and successful at that. Create a multi-tier system of support for SEL. And you heard earlier, It talked about Tier 1, which is this is what we'll do for everyone, and Tier 2, for some kids, they'll receive groups. We'll have people who are trained. These people will assist and train staff. And then Tier 3, the red kids who have a lot of, challenges would receive that one-on-one support, that connection, that sort of thing. So again, it's more intentional, it's more deliberate, and it's systematic. So, those are the goals. And then if you turn to the next page, just talks about providing a safe and supportive environment. That's very important. That's our primary responsibility. And this is still being developed, so your feedback, I would appreciate your feedback. And you can see all classroom teachers will have an effective, they're like adult practice. What can we hold the adults responsible to do? What will, and then what are the adults matrix and then the student. So all classroom teachers will have an effective SEL plan and an effective behavior management plan, for example. But someone has to help them with that, train them with that, train them and guide them. And then so you can see there's some preliminary data, and we just put that in there for the time being. This is just the 2 months, August and September's information. And then you can see some of the actions. So we have the target, we have adult practice, we have student practice, we have the data piece to measure it, then we have actions, formulate and plan an Office of Social Emotional Learning, for example, establish a district universal standard for positive, how are we going to approach this, this piece, the social emotional piece? It has to be unified, it has to be intentional, and it has to be district-wide. And then you can take a look at the other ones. And then with that, obviously, there is a budget. It's a wild sort of guesstimation. And a lot of this can be our grant dollars that we're currently using, just sort of rerouting those regarding this. And this could be less also. So I just wanted to throw out, I said, hey, Carla, this is what I'm thinking. Can you give me some numbers? So thank you, Ms. Eamon. And then another piece of this would be, you heard about the attendance and that sort of thing. And we're not done. That's where I stopped. So I'll open it up. I'll turn it over to you.
I just want to make a comment that I think it's a really good idea to have a separate, deliberate group of people working toward, making this happen, because so often we put more on principals, more on counselors, more on teachers, and to have this deliberate focus, number one, and it also kind of gets out ahead of the Senate Bill 100 as well, because we have to show the state and that we have, focused on trying to lower those occurrences of expulsions and that, and we have to show what we've done. So this is kind of forward thinking to some degree on addressing that issue and really showing that we've done everything we could before we put a child out of school. And then, like I say, I often say we keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. And so we've, over the years, had grants for this and grants for that. And when the grant leaves, then the people are still here. But, if the grant didn't work, then why do we still have the same programs that we're doing? So I think it's a great idea to focus on, a deliberate focus on these issues and how to help people that are already in the positions do a better job than they're doing. They're doing a good job, but they've gone their limits. I hear principals and assistant principals and teachers always saying, we're just so overwhelmed. And so one more piece of paper it's just going to take them over the edge in many cases. So I think it has to be something deliberate and something separate that actually focuses on it. And that's my 2 cents worth. Other questions or concerns? Or Mr. Adler, you have something?
Do I just look like I have something?
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Carrata, and I appreciate you putting this together as well as the data that you shared. I think, right in line with what the interventionists were talking about. I think it's important for the board to consider kind of the macro scheme of what we're seeing in terms of issues in the district. And I think that just a couple of months ago, we brought you in and asked you to run, and you're already sprinting. So I appreciate that. One of the elements to me, it kind of ties into what Mrs. Ross was mentioning about the things that we pile on to the classroom teachers and to the principals, is that even though our individual schools may have unique differences, it's one of the important pieces, I think, about a change culture is we all have to speak the same language. And if we can boil it down to a few common words or concepts that everybody can repeat, whether they're a classroom teacher, an administrator, or a volunteer that we bring in the door that day, then we probably take a big leap towards reinforcing the expectations that we have for our kids and for our schools. And I think a centralized network like this with some acute focus definitely could help do that. So.
Jackson.
I like it because this is a holistic approach to dealing with the child. You can deal with the academic and not deal with the social, emotional, or the behavior, and you still don't have what you need. So I really appreciate that everyone's working toward looking at all sides of a child, because it all intertwines and has to come together to make them what they need to be. Thank you for that.
Other comments? Mr. Corey?
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, Dr. Carrata, this is a process map. What you see here. Thank you for that. We need more of these because it helps explain things visually, because text is one thing, but being able to visualize it is really important, because so many of these processes are very complicated, and it's hard to grasp them in a running narrative form. So that's a great step forward in that. And as far as the other document, which was presented as this, and this is in draft form, obviously, but it's a concept that looks at issues that are sort of root cause problems, and we can only do so much within the number of hours and days we have a student in front of us in our classrooms. And I think this is a very good start. My only concern here is that, and you sent to me, and I believe Mr. Adler also, some information about teacher turnover and the number of resignations. And for whatever reason, I don't know what they all are, but what I hear from time to time is that it just overwhelms new teachers, and they are not prepared when they come out of school to deal with the issues that we deal with in these classrooms. And they are trying to do their best, and it is a very, very tough hill to climb to get past that point in a classroom if you're just brand new out of school or just in your first couple of years in your career. And anything we can do to help, once we've brought somebody on board and we've got them in a classroom and they're working, anything we can do to help them in classroom management and in the type of peer support and mentoring is I think really, really important, because it costs us a lot of time and effort to bring people in, and then if they go away after a year or two, all that's lost and we start all over, and they don't feel good and we don't feel good. Nobody feels good about that. Nobody wins in that situation. So anything we can do to help with the issues of classroom management and support of new teachers in our classrooms would be a great component of this holistic approach to it. And by helping them, they will do a better job and they will help those students in a way that they may not have been able to in the past.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay. This time I'd like to introduce Mr. Eric Bush, who is our, what's his title today? Financial Officer. Mr. Bush, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you before we ask you to talk about the proposed expenditures over $2,500.
I believe I know most everybody in the room, perhaps not. I started working in Peoria as actually the first Chief Financial Officer for Peoria County. Back in 2008, I worked with the now City Manager for Peoria, Pat Urich, for about 3 years before moving over to Bloomington Normal Schools Unit 5, a similarly sized school district with its own set of issues, and spent 4 years there. Been sort of working on my own trade, doing some consulting for the last year or so, but bring to the district about 15 years of specifically public finance experience. Former city manager, as well as about 5 years in acquisitions too. So jack of all trades. I've seen a lot. Military career of about 7 years. I know how important the military can be in formulating some ethics and work habits. So I agree with Mr. Cloyd that process maps help brings ideas to clarity. So I'm hearing a lot of really neat things from the board tonight about where I can fit in a niche and help over the next few months and maybe hopefully longer.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Bush on proposed expenditures over $2,500?
I did review the list, and nothing particularly stood out to me as being outside of what I would consider normal and customary. We did have a small conversation in the finance office about ensuring controls were in place to make sure that we can assure to you that even though we're reporting on expenditures $2,500 and above, that kiting, a form of fraud, is not taking place. That's where you would separate invoices to avoid that reporting, and we're going to be looking at how to do that in the future and bring that forward as a potential policy. As well, I'd like to thank Director Siepel for her graciousness today, as I probably gave her a heart attack because I told her that I had problems with her $44,000 computer purchase, which was using federal funds. There can be some discontinuity there between state purchasing law and federal purchasing law and how you proceed with purchases over certain economic or monetary thresholds. All we had to do is make a quick phone call today, make sure that the firm that we're working with had met consortium pricing, which is one requirement, and that they weren't federally disbarred or suspended from participating in federal contracts. So actually, not tomorrow's policy committee, but the next one, I should probably have some clarity on that aspect as well, that IT would want to follow in that regard. So just those two quick comments.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
No other comments or questions for Mr. Bush? Thank you. Report of request under the Freedom of Information Act and the status of such requests.
Thank you.
Dr. Karat.
Yeah, thank you, President Ross. Since our last board meeting on September 28th, we received 4 new requests, and of these new requests, 2 were filled. There were 3 pending requests noted on September 28th, and 2 requests were filled. So we have received 90 requests for this calendar year thus far, and the running total in terms of amount, the cost, is $2,480.39.
Thank you. We're now at consent agenda. Mr. Cloyd.
Thank you, President Ross. The items on this evening's consent agenda consist of the following. Number one, gifts to the school district. This meeting, $1,300. Year-to-date, $43,341.53. Proposed action that the following donations be accepted and letters of appreciation sent to the donors. Haircuts voucher valued at $300 by Great Clips to Markville School. $1,000 donation by Anonymous to Charter Oak Primary School, a $100 donation by Sharon Cruz to Roosevelt K-8 School Band Department, a $100 donation by Terry Knapp to Roosevelt K-8 School Band Department, school supplies valued at $198 by Shop and Save Grocery Store to District 150 Schools. Thank you for those. Item number 2, payment of bills. Item number 3, the Human Resources Report. The proposed action is the appointment, employment, compensation, performance, resignation, retirement, or discharge of an employee. Item number 4, payment for travel. Item number 5, a board travel request. The proposed action is that the Board of Education approve the following expenditure for board members Ernestine Jackson and Martha Ross to travel to and attend the Great Lakes Turn Conference in Downers Grove, Illinois, November 5th and November 6th of 2015 at a total cost of $1,134. Number 6, the field trip approval, Emmanuel Academy Rankin Experience College Tour. Proposed action is that the Board of Education approve the field trip for juniors and seniors from Emmanuel Academy per Board Policy 6:240. Students will travel to St. Louis, Missouri on October 23, 2015, participating in the Rankin Experience College Tour hosted by Rankin College. Traveling and meal expenses will be provided by Rankin Technical College. Item number 7, amendment number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Peoria and Peoria Public School District 150 dated August 14th, 2014. Proposed action is that the Board of Education of the City of Peoria, School District 150, approve the attached amendment number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement with the City of Peoria regarding the provision of 3 City of Peoria police officers in District 150 high schools at an hourly rate of $47.01. Item number 8, contract for interim financial officer Eric Bush. Proposed action is that the Board of Education of the City of Peoria, School District 150, approve the attached consultant contract with Eric Bush to perform the duties of interim financial officer of District 150 for 183.5 days through and including June 30, 2016, in the amount of $85,000. And that completes the consent agenda, Madam President.
Thank you. Are there any items that board members wish to pull for a separate vote? All right. Could I get a motion and a second on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any questions? Discussion?
This one.
Ms. Wolfmeyer?
Is the difference in the intergovernmental agreement with the city, is the price per hour been reduced? Is that it?
No,
The
it's
amendment?
the same as it was last year.
Okay,
I believe the difference had
I
to
guess
do with
why we're having the
COPS
amendment.
grant. Is that correct, Mr. Redberg?
We have the amendment because earlier this spring, Dr. Lathan had decided that we were not going to renew this contract. In fact, the board had decided
Right,
so we're
we
not
did.
going to renew this contract. And then, so we sent a formal notice of termination. And then also, by its own terms, under the contract, if the city had not received the COPS grant by June 30th, the agreement expired by its terms. The board and the city subsequently agreed to re-enter this arrangement. So really, all the addendum does is to undo our previous revocation and revive the contract again for another year.
Is that clarification?
The difference is, I think there's one less police officer.
but since they got the COPS grant, is that going to affect our rate? I thought that was the idea, is that we had a set rate, and then if they received the COPS grant, our rate would go down. Have you talked to them about
They would
that?
give us extra, is my understanding. They would give us extra people.
I did share that
Okay,
with them.
that isn't what it originally was. Originally, it was supposed to go down.
Well, that's still in the contract.
Yeah, you mentioned it to me earlier, and I spoke with Chief Mitchell about it, and he mentioned what Ms. Ross just said, that what they would do is provide additional support. So we actually have an individual at Woodruff that we're not, so we had, last year, we were paying for 4.
Right.
This year, we're paying for 3, and they're giving us 2 additional cops.
Do we need them?
We do, yes, ma'am. We had one at Lincoln today. Yes, we
Okay.
did. Mhm.
It was my understanding that it would be additional, we would pay for so many and then they would give us so
Well,
many.
they came
was
up with
my
that
original-
this year, but originally that was not the agreement. Originally, the COPS grant was supposed to make our hourly rate go down. That was the
I didn't see
idea
that anywhere.
originally.
Okay.
Well, when we had the discussions a year ago, that's how they put
This
it to
is
us, but
last
they
year's
didn't apply,
contract.
but they didn't apply for it last year. But that is exactly what they told us a year ago.
I will mention something to Chief
Well, if it's
Mitchell.
worked out a different way, that's fine, as long as you feel like we need, I mean, if they say they're gonna give them to us and we don't use them, then we're not getting anything out of that COPS grant.
I appreciate the background and the history. Thanks.
Other comments? Questions?
Just an explanation, a little more detail about the Great Lakes Turn Conference. I'm aware of it, but it might be helpful just to explain what that is.
Okay, Dr. Carrot, would you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Ross and Mr. Cloyd. So it's a collaboration with the teacher union. So TURN stands for Teacher Union Reform Network. And the idea is that the union actually is really progressive around the idea of student improvement. And it is an opportunity for teachers and administrators and board members. They have that triangle, so those 3 entities to work collaboratively together. And their training and sessions specifically designed for teams and school districts sending teams. And I know the union is very, very supportive. They've contacted me and would like us to seriously consider sending board members and administrators, and they've identified a group. So we're actually going to share cost. And today, they're meeting as a board to pick up registration, I believe, pick up some of the costs for the teachers. And we'll split that cost if this goes through. But I have attended several times in the past, and I've always found the training to be very, very, very valuable. And they bring in speakers, their topics on poverty, their topics on social emotional, best practices. You're able to connect and network with other individuals and other board members. I would definitely recommend it, Mr. Cloyd.
Right. Just, thank you.
And even though the cost listed here is what we've put forth, Ms. Jackson and I are going to be riding together, so that's going to reduce the cost of what we have here. It's basically, it'll just be the overnight in the hotel.
So it's good professional development for board members around best practices and
union issues. Okay, any other questions, comments? Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Kowski? Aye. Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Deliberation agenda, expulsions. Mr. Adler and
Expulsions. The proposed action is that the expulsions listed on the report dated October 13th, 2015 be approved as presented.
Second.
please call the roll. Any discussion? We did discussion already. Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Kowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Number 10, expulsions with the expulsion to be held in abeyance. The proposed action is that the expulsion with the expulsion held in abeyance listed on the report dated October 13th, 2015 be approved as presented.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Costick?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye. Number 11.
Number 11, the revocation of board probation. The proposed action is that the revocation of board probation listed on the report dated October 13th, 2015 be approved as presented.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
Mrs. Butler?
Aye.
Mr. Floyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Costick?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wolfmeyer?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
So, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Adler and Ms. Costick. Presentations and suggestions by board members. Would you like to speak?
No,
Okay.
not on that issue.
Okay.
I do have one
Okay.
request or suggestion. That would be, at some point, Ms. Langhoff, the update on what's been done on the issues in terms of communication about health education in the schools and how that's been received so far. Not tonight, but,
We're presenting at Parent University on Thursday, so that'll be
okay.
first step. And then as the staff members are going into each building, we're making sure we have a count of the parents who have opted out.
Okay,
We'll present at the
The
next board meeting.
good.
Yes.
That'd just be nice to have a little update on
Yep,
that.
we'll do that.
Thank you.
Any other suggestions or presentation by board members? No. Report from board committees. Do you have anything, Ms., you have one? Okay, Mr. Adler.
So Mrs. Costick and I had the opportunity to have the first Buildings Committee meeting last week and had a very good discussion with Mr. Myers and some of his staff about the opportunities they see at our facilities. And specifically, we had a pretty extensive conversation around heating and cooling equipment, places that needed it the most, and kind of in a space where you seem like you're always talking about spending money. We think that there's some potential opportunity for operational efficiencies. I guess to make matters simple, the thermostat control kind of throughout the district is a little bit loose. And I have personal experience that working with facilities teams at Caterpillar that when you don't think it's a big thing, but when you adjust that and you hold it steady for a couple of degrees, it adds up very quickly. So there's potential to have, I guess, both sides of it. But we've asked, and Mr. Bush attended on like his second day on the job, which was excellent. We're looking at following back up in December sometime with some opportunities to approach both places we may invest as well as gain some operational efficiencies. Mrs. Costick, do you want to?
The only other thing that I would add is the possibility of getting an energy audit, just to see where we could save so that we know where we need to focus at originally. That's it.
I believe Mr. Cloyd had some contacts there and had suggested.
Yep.
That's a great idea.
I think one of the things that we really need to include in that is boiler controls. That is a critical area. And most school buildings were built with far too much boiler capacity because that was the way the architects designed them to make sure they never were cold. And you have buildings with 3 boilers in them, one of them is shut down, one of them is running on standby, and the other one is sufficient to heat the entire building. And that is a hugely wasteful system, and there's both a training issue and a technology and maintenance issue, all 3 of those wrapped up in each other, and there are hundreds of thousands of dollars of beneficial improvements that can be made in those systems in most facilities like ours. So I'm very happy to hear you're doing that. If you'd like some more input on that, I could provide some of that because I have some experience in it. And it's just a great opportunity to do that.
Thank you. Other board reports, committee reports?
We have a Policy Committee meeting tomorrow at 9:30, and we will be taking up several issues, and we will continue to do so, and working in conjunction with the Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee on Senate Bill 100 and its implications when we start to have a little more input from other sources that we can really use to help craft a policy. We're not going to try and write this from scratch. We think that both the Illinois Associated School Boards and our law firm are going to provide some pretty good drafts of what to do here, because it's going to be fairly far-reaching. I think I identified 5 or 6 different policies that we have that are going to have some modification of some sort. So we'll have to work through that and get started on it so that we can have those in time. We've set a preliminary deadline of having all the policy stuff done by the end of February, so that all the implementation, training, communication can take place prior to the start of the next school year. Thank you.
Committee reports. Any others?
Yes, the Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee, we did meet last week to begin talks with parent, teachers, and community stakeholders regarding Senate Bill 100. We had, the turnout was very healthy and good in terms of presence and conversation, and just making sure that the individuals understand that we are right now a committee that's looking at reviewing policy, so we pretty much will be responding to what the policy committee brings out of their committee. So tomorrow's meeting begins that process, and we encourage those who want to follow this issue, participate in this issue, to do so likewise. Mrs. Jackson, anything would you like to add? I'd just like to make one comment. There are 2 meetings going on almost the same time tomorrow. I think we ought to, if we set those committees, because if we want to attend them and they're important enough, I think we ought to talk about the dates so that two meetings that we all need to be at the same time are going on at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I just would like to kind of put that out there so that we can better adjust the meeting schedule.
I do want to say that, in helping to put together that whole discipline policy some years ago, I think that the policy committee, there's no way that you would be getting, you'll be reviewing policies at this point to see where they need changing, but it's not like they're going to come out tomorrow with a policy.
No.
So I think that might be misunderstood to some degree, but I agree we could, as we set those dates for meetings, we should be probably cognizant of what else is going on, so that if we wanted to attend. 2 board members are usually assigned to a committee, and since it is a public meeting, it's a meeting held in public, not for the public to speak, so to speak, but a meeting held in public, anyone is welcome to attend, but because more than 2 board members may be there, so. If we could coordinate, that would be good.
As we get into some of this, I think some of those meetings, we do meet during the day, but I think some of those meetings need to be in the late afternoon or evening so that those who could attend from the public would like to be there. They're not particularly exciting. There's a lot of, it's a lot of administrative stuff, but if you want to see how policy is made, or at least worked on, it would be an opportunity to do that and provide some input. So I think we'll try and schedule that if we can, but it's difficult with everybody else's schedule.
Right. Most of our policies come from the state, and we revise them to meet our own needs. So we don't have to start from ground zero with this one. People across the state are developing a policy to address the Senate Bill 100, which integrates with their regular discipline policies. So we don't just sit here and write them ourselves. We revise them to meet our needs. So, is there anything else from anyone around the horseshoe? Ms. Costa, did you have something?
Just why we are here for this week. And this week, we are here to be the critical public link to our public schools. We are here to be accessible to the public. We are here to be accountable for the performance of our schools. And we are here to make sure that education is not just a line item on the school board's agenda, but that it is the most important item. And those are reasons we are here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the night? I need a motion to adjourn. Okay. Thank you.